Okay, thank you. So there are actually 8 chapters. So the first chapter is kind of the introduction about the size of left behind children, all kind of uh, uh, the factors related to kindness, migration, and the emergence of the subpopulation of left behind children. The second chapter basically looks at factors associated with parental migration and the caretaking arrangements. So basically, children who are cared for by grandparents or by one parent, or sometimes by even by relatives or even by themselves. And then chapter 3 and 4, I look at the caretaking home and the caretaking or parenting from distance. So caretaking at home, I focus on grandparenting. It's a really a big social phenomenon in rural China. And then chapter 4 looks at the long-distance parenting. Your parents living a few hundred miles away or even 1,000 miles away, and trying to perform some kind of parenting duties. And then chapter 5 and 6 and 7 looks at the oh, this one. I'm going to use this one. Yeah. So this one doesn't work. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So chapter 5, 6, 7 basically look at the behavioral and the psychological outcomes. Basically how caretaking arrangements, parenting, long-distance parenting, caretaking influence education, deviance, delinquency, psychological well-being. The topic about ambiguous laws is actually from it's part of chapter 7. So I want to see, this is a chapter I introduced the concept of ambiguous laws, and I want to see how children, parents, grandparents, how they perceive the concept, ambiguous laws, how they understand the relationship with the parents and also the family dynamics. So I want to start with a story here. It's from the interview quote. It's a story about a little boy. His name is Lulu. On a Sunday morning, Lulu, his 5-year-old boy, he was playing by himself in a cotton field where his aunt was busy reading. And Lulu seemed to be a little bit unhappy. And his aunt asked why. Lulu said, sadly, he said, my father went outside, my mother went outside, and now my old sister is going outside too. And now I'm the only one left. So at the time of the interview, Lulu was 5 years old, and his sister was about 15 years old. His parents, both parents, went to Shenzhen to work, and we call it and also in rural area they call it going outside. It's kind of like the Mexican immigrant, the families in Mexican coming to the United States is actually going north. And in rural area when they're going up, when they migrate to the cities, to urban areas, they call it going outside. So his parents went to Shenzhen actually before he was even born. And his mom came back for about 2-3 years, stayed with him for 2 or 3 years, and then joined her husband after that. So he was basically raised, he and his sister were basically raised by his grandparents, maternal grandparents, actually. His sister actually was not going out, not going outside. His sister actually was just accepted by senior high school. So, but Lulu, he was 5 years old. He had no idea. So, and everybody told him, "Oh, your sister's leaving." So, his sister was accepted by senior high school, which was it's about a 2 hours distance away. So she came back to visit about every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. So he was sad. Lulu was sad, and this is actually the story his aunt told me. I want to tell the story because I think there are 2 points I want to highlight later. The first is the prevalence of rural to urban migration, the prevalence of rural to urban migration. And second is the impact of rural to urban migration on children. And for somebody like Lulu, he was 5 years old, you can still see, he understands the impact. That he knows the impact. So so let's look at the data a little bit, and I think it shows us, what the prevalence of rural to urban migration is. The last century, about half a century, we see there's a huge economic development in China, and also huge urbanization. Economic growth and urbanization basically facilitates a massive rural to urban migration. From 1980s to 2021, you can see the size of rural to urban migration increased about 30 times. In 1982, it's about 6-7 million, and 2021, it's about 172 million. So that's it's a very sharp, very huge increase. And the size, the speed of the migration makes the Chinese rural to urban migration to be probably the largest migration in human history. So unintended consequence of the rural to urban migration is the emergence of the left behind children. Left behind children, the size of the left behind children. There are different kind of studies with a different number, but this is the number I think most people use. That is 69.7 million. So that's the children who are left behind by 1 or 2 parents, So that's about 70 million. And the 70 million is really a big size because it's larger than the population in Great Britain. It's larger than the population size in Great Britain. And about 1/3 of children in rural China, and more than 1/5 of China's entire child population. So it's more than 1/3 of the rural children are considered as left behind. In major migrant-centric provinces, more than half of the children are left behind by 1 or both parents. The province like Jiangxi, I did my interview on data connection there. Province like Tulane, probably Henan, Sichuan. Those provinces have more than half of the children, rural children, are left behind. So that's the reason there's a lot of panic, a lot of social anxiety. The media, actually the news media, multiple news media claim that modern China is raising a generation of left behind children. So So what I want to talk about is part of my chapter 7. And what I want to try to understand is how children perceive their parents' absence and the relationship with their parents and also grandparents. So the theoretical lens I use is the framework for ambiguous loss. So it's proposed by Pauline Boss. Theoretical ambiguous loss is when we talk about loss, there's a loss such as lateral deaths if people die. And for those kind of loss, it's very clear cut. And when somebody dies, we go through a certain kind of grieving period, and then the process is over, it's completed. But for certain kind of loss, they don't have predetermined or definite closure. So it makes the grieving to be incomplete, postponed, or ambiguous. And then the boss proposed that two kinds of ambiguous loss. The first one is loss related to family members who are physically present but psychologically absent. So people who family members having dementia, for example, they are physically there, but they really cannot communicate with you because they don't know who you are. And then we have a loss related to family members who are physically absent but psychologically present. Example would be those like children who are missing. They are physically unavailable, but psychologically, your parents think about them every day. Migration is a kind of crossover. So that means it contains elements of both types of ambiguous loss. You have migrant parents, for example, they do not adapt well in the new environment, so they may be physically present, but they are not psychologically there for the spouse or for children living with them. And then there are also a lot of type of loss. That is for children left behind. Their parents are not physically available, but they are psychologically there every day. The grandparents will tell them, your parents are working hard somewhere in the city, and they're trying to make money for you so you can go to school, you can achieve better education. So that's what I'm going to talk about. That is the second type of loss, the loss, the ambiguous loss among left behind children. So we want to, so what I want to do is basically to try to explore children's feeling toward their migrant parents, the relationship with their parents, the interaction with their parents. And what I want to kind of develop a quantitative scale of ambiguous loss. The reason I want to do that is because this kind of theoretical framework is used in transnational migration research, but in the research in China, the domestic migration in China, I haven't seen anybody using it, and I feel like we need to explore the concept, the framework a little more to have a better idea about how children think about their feelings about their parents, and also to quantitatively develop a scale to capture this concept. So I want to develop a quantitative scale of ambiguous loss, and also I want to kind of look at the validity, the predictive validity of the scale. So for example, look at the association between ambiguous loss and caretaking arrangement, and also the association between ambiguous loss and psychological well-being. So that's kind of the purpose of of the part of chapter 7, and that's what I want to focus in today's presentation. So the data come from a project called Left Behind Children and Caretakers in Rural China. It's a big title, but it's a small project. Small project done by me. So I connect data from a county, called Peace County in Jiangxi province a few years ago. It's the sample size is not bad. It's more than 500. It's from 10 schools using the multiple stage sampling method. But before the survey data connection and also after the survey data connection, I actually did a lot of interviews and also field observation in those research sites. So I talked to a lot of people in those villages. A lot of them is just very casual conversation with them, and then a lot of them are kind of more semi-structured or unstructured conversation. So many of them are matched interview. So nothing means I talk with the students, parents, and caretakers. So these are some of the results from the in-depth interview about ambiguous laws, how children perceive the impact of migration and the relationship with the migrant parents, the family dynamics. They are basically 4 kind of themes emerging from the qualitative data. The first is the majority of children actually understood why the parents have to work outside. So they understand it pretty well, but at the same time, almost everybody, they were concerned about the loss of living together as a family, about the lack of intimacy development. And then the second one is children always, about every child I interviewed, they talk about there's a certain kind of empty space in the emotional relationships with the parents, and they feel frustrated, depressed, lonely, or angry. And then the third one, children talk a lot, and also parents, grandparents talk a lot, is when parents came back, return to visit them, like during the spring festival, or children visit the parents in the host cities, children always feel uneasy, awkward, or unsure what to do. So the conversation or the interaction is always kind of awkward. And then the last one that children mentioned is something we call the boundary ambiguity. So that is children, a lot of times they are not exactly sure about the status of parents in the family. They don't know exactly the status of the parent in the family, especially when you compare parents to grandparents, and they always put parents kind of as a common. So the parents are kind of like more like a marginal members of the family. I'm going to just show you guys some interview code for each of the scenes. So the first one is about ambivalent feelings. That is, most children understand, why parents have to go, but at the same time, they feel like they don't really have the opportunities to develop intimacy. They don't have too many opportunities to interact with each other. So the little Jing Wen, she's a 7th grader. She actually was quite academically gifted. She ranked #1 in the class. She told me that her grandparents told me that they were very proud of her. When I asked her about her parents going outside, she said my daddy said he went outside to Dagong and make money for us to go to school. Other children are kind of a little bit more ambivalent. Rule, she's the seventh grader. She said it's good and bad. It's good and bad. So the good thing is that it improves the family financially, not that poor anymore. And then the bad part is there's no time together. Miao Miao, she's a seventh grader. She says, I don't know, about whether the parents should go outside or not. She said, I don't know. She said, if they stay at home, then the family's financial sources will be lost. But when they walk outside, the grandparents have a tough job. So emotionally, definitely you want to stay together. So this is the first thing that your children have very ambivalent feelings about their parents' migration. And then the second one is about the empty space. That is, they're emotionally, they don't really, most children, when you interview, they say they don't have exactly, they don't have a very intimate relationship with their parents. And some children are frustrated. Some children actually are angry. And this kid, he's an eighth grader, Chen. He's the one with the kind of the more extreme case. He's pretty angry. He said, yeah, it does. When they came back to visit, they would ask me sometimes not to do this or not to do that. I feel like you did a lot of reason. Why do you want to supervise my behavior now? So for example, when they come back, I feel that I'm not very excited because I feel that they are like strangers. Not even as intimate as those in the village. Their friends in the village, grandpa, grandma. I feel like every year they come to visit just one time, coming back one time and going back one time. It's like they are strangers. The term strangers actually are very frequently used by left behind children because their parents, most of the parents see their children about 1 to 2 times a year. So the intimacy is not exactly developed between children and the parents. And then the third one is about when children do interact with their parents, there's some kind of uneasiness and discomfort. This is a quote from the migrant father. I call them, they just visit home. And so I talked to him, and the grandparents also were there. And he said that when I was at home, the son did not stay with me either. My daughter was a little bit better, but neither talked with me much. My oldest daughter, who also went outside for Dagong, come back about 1 or 2 times a year. They then become so talkative and clinging to the old sister. So when the old sister comes back, all three hug together and play together. They're happy as hell. And then the grandma was there, and she said, they do not talk with the dad or the mom. The mom even said, she said, when I came back, my daughter behaved like she was adopted on my own. She does not care. She sees them, but behaves like she does not see them. That's it. 2 kids are all like that. The last one is about the boundary ambiguity. This is actually the first time I heard from grandparents. I'm not quite sure. I don't think I see it from any other study, so I don't know how true it is. It's a grandparent, Xiao, he said, one thing about children raised by grandparents, when they cry, they never ask for the mom. Anytime a child cries, she does not ask for the mom, no matter what you do. They never ask for the mother, never ask. These are children raised by grandparents. The word mom is strange to them. It's a number of times she comes back, just 1 to 2 times a year, mostly just 1 time, just returning before Spring Festival. Parents are coming back. There was not so much about where the children being clingy. They did not even want them. So, I don't know if how genuine this is, but for most children, they definitely see that there is a big difference between grandparents and the parents. And the one boy, he was 8th grade. He was about 13 years old, and I asked him about his relationship between his parents and the grandparents, and he simply said, he said it's a lot comparable. Yeah, he said it's a lot comparable. It's like when I asked such a silly question. It's like well, you are really comparing apples and oranges. Yeah, he said it's not comparable. It's the parents, they are far away, and they probably give them some money, but children don't see that. And the children see the grandparents providing food, providing clothes, and doing everything for them. So he basically said it's not comparable. So for parents, so for children, I think they do understand parents are part of the family members, but at the same time, I think they are probably put them at the corner of the family. They consider them as kind of marginal members of the family. So those are kind of the from the interview data, the themes emerging from the interview data about ambiguous loss. So the next step I try to do is to based on the qualitative data, based on the interview, try to develop some scales, and put them into the survey and see how reliable they are and see if they have any kind of predictive validity. So so I first develop a quantitative scale of ambiguous loss, and then I try to explore the predictive validity of the ambiguous loss scale by looking at the relationship between some of the predictors and the ambiguous loss, and also some of the psychological well-being outcomes, how they are associated with the ambiguous loss scale. So this is the scale I created and used in the survey. So I have 8 items. So the first one is I appreciate my parents going out to Dagong, and I know they do that for my benefit. Sometimes I feel that my migrant parents are strangers. I have good relationship with my parents. I understand why my parents go out to Dagong. Parents going out to Dagong is making sacrifice for me. Sometimes I feel I'm being abandoned by my parents. I sometimes feel awkward when parents come back to see me during festival. Compared with my grandparents, my caretakers are more like my parents. So you can see it's a majority of the children here. It's about 80% of children agree or very much agree about the first statement, another is they appreciate their parents going outside. And also you can see about this, about 75% say they have good relationship with the parents. And then here about 90% understand why parents go out to Dagong. So the majority of parents understand understand why the parents are going out. They understand the financial justification. But then at the same time, you can also see that a pretty good percentage. This is about 40%, 37% that feel awkward when parents come back, and then here 46% say that their grandparents are more like their parents. So So these kind of results are basically quite consistent with our the qualitative findings. So the next thing I do is I did a little bit simple data analysis. So I look at the dimensions of the scale ambiguous loss. So I look at it with the exploratory factor analysis, and then you can see that basically two factors here. The first one I call it feelings of understanding and appreciation. So another is they appreciate parents going out, have good relationship with parents, understand why parents going out, and parents going out is making sacrifice for me. And then the second one is the feeling of strangers and being abandoned. So feel like my parents are strangers, being abandoned, feeling awkward, and caretaking are more like parents. So the scale appears to have basically two subscales or two dimensions. They're highly correlated with each other. And also the factor loading, you can see they are the factor loading seems to be pretty good. And then the next step I did is try to basically see if the scale had a predictive validity. So first, so I run some simple regression models to see how the two dimensions of the scale is associated. How the two dimensions of the scale are associated with the caretaking arrangement. The caretaking arrangement actually has four different types of caretaking arrangement. That is, one grandparent caretaking, two grandparent caretaking, maternal migration, and the paternal migration. So the two grandparent caretaking is the reference group here, and I also control a bunch of other variables like caretaking practice, school bounding, parental characteristics, all sorts of things. I control a bunch of variables. But you can see the first dimension, the feeling of strangeness, being abandoned, is highly, it's significantly associated with the caretaking arrangement. So basically, parents children who cared for by grandparents, they're much more likely to report the feelings of strangeness or being abandoned. If one parent stayed at home, they're less likely to report that. But it's a variable, the dimension, lack of understanding, appreciation is not associated with caretaking arrangement. So again, this is kind of consistent with our qualitative data. That is, children in general, understand why parents walking outside. It doesn't matter, whether it's it doesn't matter what kind of caretaking arrangement they have. So the second table, the second regression analysis I did is look at relationship between the two dimensions of ambiguous loss and the four indicators of psychological well-being. So the four indicators are the self-injury, social anxiety, social withdrawal, and the physiological symptoms. The model here was controlled for caretaking arrangements and parental characteristics, household socioeconomic status, and other variables. And you can see there's a pretty consistent association between feeling of strangeness and the four indicators of psychological well-being. So you can see they're all positive and they're all significant. So that basically means ambiguous loss is a significant predictor of the children's psychological well-being. So for feeling of strangeness, four of them are significant, and then the lack of appreciation, two of them are significant, and then another two are also in the same has the same direction, even though it's not as big. they're not significant. So kind of will summarize the results show. I think my argument here is basically ambiguous laws. Based on the result, I think it's an important concept here that can be used to predict children's behavioral or psychological outcomes. Children, left behind children exhibit prevalent ambivalent illness toward current migration. So they understand its economic justification, but at the same time, burdened by the loss of family life and the lack of intimacy with parents. The quantitative analysis basically reveals that there are two ambiguous laws consist of two associated dimensions. So feelings of understanding and appreciation, and also feelings of strangeness and abandonment. And then in terms of predictive validity, I think the scale seems to be a good, reliable and a valid scale. That is, we can see that it's the one of the dimension feeling of the concept ambiguous loss is associated with caretaking arrangement, and the children of one parent migration have less likely to have feelings of strangeness and abandonment compared to the children of the dual parent migration. And also the impact seems to be to go beyond the caretaking arrangement. That is, you can see the two dimensions of ambiguous loss are consistent and significant predictors of children's psychological well-being. So with that said, I think I don't know if I did it too fast, but that's it. Thank you, guys.